Doing mewing. Clearly, one of the drivers for people coming to this channel and understanding what I'm doing is people who want to gain improvements. Now, I want to be clear, I want to help you gain health improvements, and I understand that health and beauty are, in this scenario, fairly synonymous. So it is largely the same thing. I think the best elements, I think at the moment in mewing, are the mealtime exercise, the tongue chewing, and the abs walk. It's very important to understand that, like mathematics or learning a language, there are many different textbooks, there are many different programs, there are many different approaches. Everyone learns differently. So this is a very difficult thing to understand. Remember, I know where my tongue is when I'm thinking about it. We don't really know for certain where anyone else's tongue is. All the real research on this has been done in laboratories in sort of test situations. They're not really normal every day. You're not sitting in front of a computer. You're not sitting at home in front of the television. You're not driving a car. These are the things you do most of the time. And people haven't really analysed tongue position in these situations. So a lot of this is educated guesses. So it is not easy finding science or helping people to change, teaching people under these conditions. Now, there's a lot of other myofunctional therapy or oral myology, training programs out to do that. And don't forget how important general body posture is. I think a lot of people will make us gain orally within their mouth. Then they need to make a gain with their head and neck posture, then they need to further gains in the mouth, and it sort of can vary backwards and forwards. That, you know, where are you stuck at for your next movement forward, your next general improvement. So I just talked briefly about the top recommended exercises at the moment. The mealtime exercise is a good one because it's a function that is you can fairly easily intercept. So you're going to eat something, you sit down at your dinner table, you chop your food up, then I say people should have a talisman. I go in the exercise a little bit more, and we will be producing more on the mealtime exercise. It's something I need more up there. I've got some videos I've taken that I'm putting together. But if you take a talisman, take an object on the table and then put it behind with your non-dominant hand, or I often just take my non-dominant hand and slip it down in my belt behind my trousers. Now that hand's out of action. It's out of action, and because I'm right-handed, so I've got my left hand, my non-dominant hand, it's out of action all this time when you're going to be eating. So that's reminding you to do a different pattern of behavior. You've got to chew your food till it's absolute mush. I remember my grandmother, I think, telling me that you needed to chew 32 times because you had 32 teeth. Well, I don't know about the scientific validity of that statement, but certainly we need to be chewing more than I often see some kids. It's 1-2 chews and the food's into your mouth. And I do worry a little bit about lots of people telling me that they've got diet issues, and I'm asking them, well, did you chew your food properly? Particularly if we're talking about carbohydrates, because carbohydrates are supposed to be mixed with salivary amylase in your mouth. So that needs enough time to mix and enough chewing to mix, and of course enough saliva to mix, which means a decent bit of chewing. So I think before you head down a low carb diet, although I am on one, do try chewing your food well. So if we're using the mealtime exercise, it's something you can actively do. Once you've chewed your food into liquid, you really chin tuck. Yep. Remember the film A Dead Poet Society? They're making the kids quote poetry while they're doing penalty shootouts. Why? Because it made it more difficult. If you can knock out penalty goals in football while you're quoting poetry, you're going to know your poetry. You're going to have that poetry well embedded in your mind. If you can do a decent swallow with a real good Mackenzie chin tuck, with really good body posture, then you are forcing good swallowing patterns. You're making it more difficult for yourself. And if you're doing that repeatedly, really trying to relax those shoulders, feel the core muscles, feel the tongue coming up, feel that back third of the tongue as you go to swallow. And I'll come back to engaging the posterior third of the tongue. It's remember, engaging the posterior third of the tongue with a suck hold. You've got to really understand that. You've got to feel it. You've got to feel your hyoid coming up. Now, the next good exercise also is tongue chewing. A number of followers have set off on this gargantuan chewing marathon and, of course, ended up with jaw joint problems. And if you look at the lecture, I'll put it underneath, where I look at Jude Law, I'm talking about the inner U, this section, which is mainly from the tongue effect, and the outer U here, which is more from the muscle effect. And I want people really to be working more on the inner U. For most people, that's where they have a deficiency. And so for most people, that's where you've got to do the most work. And of course, I think a lot of TMD is this imbalance, a part of TMD, temporomandibular dysfunction, jaw joint problems, is this imbalance between the muscle and the tongue effect. Is not everything. But I worry about people just focusing on just tough chewing gum. Tough chewing gum can be very valuable, but be careful, and be careful often because of your jaw joints. If you're going to tongue chew, you make so much more of the tongue effect that it's unlikely that you're going to precipitate a jaw joint problem. And also, you're getting the direct force of the tongue right up onto the palate and expanding, having an effect directly on the maxilla. That's where you want it. You want the effect directly on the maxilla. So tongue chewing is a very effective way of doing that. And I've got several videos about tongue chewing. So go and have a look at those videos on tongue chewing. Then I would say try and incorporate the abs walk. The abs walk's good because, well, we're going to spend a certain amount of time eating. You're going to spend a certain amount of time tongue chewing when you're not doing something else. And you're going to spend a certain amount of time walking. Again, these are all functional things to do. Function is something you can do. You can actively set yourself a task and do it. Well, it's a very good entry into changing your posture. Posture is what you actually want to achieve, but changing posture is changing you. Function's what you do, posture is who you are, it's you. And it's very hard to change who you are. This is the core of the problem. But if you really, abs walking is about putting the whole thing together with body posture and getting good neck posture. So if you're going to abs walk, you're going to have to get a good suction hold with the posterior third of your tongue and really work out how that suction hold is getting your head back. Overdo it when you're doing the abs walk and really feel your abs working and feel this whole structure of putting everything together. But I think if you work on those three, you're going to find you should be able to make significant headway. You'll take yourself to a new level. I think it's also important to point out that you need enough tongue space to do this. And if you don't have tongue space, you might need some help achieving that. And that this may not work for you. I'm not magic. If you can't have enough tongue space, well, I think it's tongue space versus perseverance. I'm guessing most people can do this with enough perseverance. Clearly, I've got better tongue space than most, so I don't know that. Then it's going to be a lot harder after about 25 years old. I mean, our ancestors were living on average to 40, 45? Maybe 50. Now, some people will always live to 90 years old. That we know that. When I was working in hospitals, I would not infrequently have someone walk in at 94. They've had an accident, they've had an issue, and I've said, your previous medical history, never seen a doctor in his life. Or her life. So we know that, he was quite capable of living to 90 even in ancient times. And these would have been influential characters. However, if most people average life expectancy was in the 40s, if you're 25, well, you're more than halfway through your life. Things slow down at this point. Now, I don't say you can't change them, but things are slowing down. Be set up for it taking longer. Don't think this is all just easy magic. Under 25, I've seen some people get relatively quick responses. It surprised me. Then psychology. In many ways, what I'm doing here is psychology. If you can work out how to make an inanimate object a memory hook, you're going in the right direction. This is kind of what we want to be doing, making inanimate objects into memory hooks, because this is about, as I said, changing yourself. You're changing you. Change your posture, you are changing you. And that is a very core, fundamental thing about yourself. And, finding those reminders. It's about reminders. And one of the things, my sister's a physiotherapist. She's a very successful physiotherapist. And one of the things she tells people to do is to every time you touch a door handle, you remind the exercise you need to do. So you think door handle, you think exercise. You think door handle, you think exercise. And you can probably keep that thought going for about 5 minutes after you touch a door handle. So consequently, if you touch a lot of door handles in the day, because you need to go through a lot of doors, then it's propelling this into your mind more frequently. So, as I said, in many ways, what we're trying to do is psychology here. And then time. Yes, I have seen some people gain remarkable success in very short periods of time, but most of us are not going to get that. Most of us are going to struggle, and it's going to take a long, long time. I will never forget that when I wasn't as well known and people were coming in to see me, people would come in and I would tell them how long this is likely to take. And they were saying, what? But, I've got the money. I want the treatment. I want you to fix me straight away. Why do I need to wait? The next person would come in and they'd be a bodybuilder. And I'd say, well, it's going to take time. And they would go, well, it's taken me 10 years to get my body looking like this. It's going to take me 10 years to improve my face. Makes absolute sense. It makes sense to me, but I guess everyone wants results now. That's our modern delusion. Now, the future here. So, clearly, I've now launched this campaign. Well, I haven't. I was going to, and then I managed to tag up with Claire, who she was on same mission, and she's launched the campaign. She's been very clever. I'm sure I would have messed up and gone in the wrong direction. So we have the campaign to prevent crooked teeth, and of course, it's not just there's two arms to this. I mean, one of the things is to prevent crooked teeth, but we need to come up with a therapy. I need to be able to shorten this timeline down to make it easier so people don't have to make such Herculean efforts to change. So we can understand what little bits to press, what therapies we can produce. But this will only happen when we get the spotlight of modern medical research focused on the subject. At the moment, that millions every year are spent on orthodontic research that is going, I believe, is wasted. And if we could just take 1/10 of that and direct it right in the directions that I feel would be most cost effective, I think we could really move forward, really gain headways. So that's one of the big reasons for the campaign, to see if we can get better research, better understanding. I mean, understand what's going on and plan out how we can research this. So please do sign up for this petition. That also will be in that box down underneath. And I'm going to try coming back, giving some more effective, now that we've gone with this campaign and we are basically wanting to promote open science. I'm going to be very open about all things going on, and I want to do much more directly help people with videos like this and going into more detail. And we will be asking for people to help with our campaign, but actual helpers. So in the not too distant future, we're going to be looking for activists. People can actually help us move this whole thing forwards, because it's going to be a long, hard slog. Change doesn't come easily. And any orthodontists or dentists listening in, listen, we mean the best. We're not here to cause any more controversy or damage than is necessary. Change is difficult, and we need change, and that's what we want to discuss. All we're trying to do is further the scientific process.